You ever get blamed for something you didn't do? Something so big it could ruin your entire career? My name's Jack McConnell. I'm 47 years old, and for the past 16 years, I've worked as a senior systems engineer at a logistics company called Northridge Freight. I built most of their back-end systems from the ground up. Shipment tracking, warehouse coordination, driver scheduling, the works. There wasn't a single piece of that digital puzzle I didn't touch. Then came Marcus Reed, the new operations VP, slick suit, polished smile, all talk. He'd been in the company maybe 3 months before he started sniffing around the IT department, acting like he knew more than he did. I could tell he wanted to make a name for himself fast. You know the type. The kind of guy who sees every system as something that can be streamlined, even if he doesn't understand how it works. Then one day, the shipment network glitched. Bad. Trucks got routed to the wrong warehouses. Deliveries missed time slots. Clients got furious. Millions in delays. By morning, Marcus had already told the board that the failure was caused by outdated custom code. My code. Said I'd ignored protocol, hadn't updated the architecture, and let everything crumble. He didn't mention that 2 weeks earlier he'd ordered changes to the routing system behind closed doors, that he pushed them through without a full QA test, and that I had warned him it wasn't ready. But it didn't matter. He had the board's ear, and I had a bullseye on my back. I sat there in that glass conference room, listening to my name get dragged through the mud, and I realized something. If I didn't speak up, if I let him write this story without me, I'd lose everything. My job, sure, but also my reputation, my future, and the truth. It would get buried under a pile of finger-pointing and half-truths. So I made a decision. If Marcus wanted to play games in the dark, I'd turn on the lights. I didn't have to shout or slam doors. All I had to do was let the right people hear what really happened. Marcus didn't waste any time. By the next morning, I was pulled into an urgent review meeting with HR and the director of IT. The director, Tom Grady, had been with the company longer than I had, but he was more of a paperwork guy, rarely got his hands dirty in code. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, watching me closely. The HR rep, a younger guy I barely knew named Brian, read through a carefully worded summary of performance concerns and potential negligence in systems maintenance. I didn't say much, just listened, took notes. They asked if I had anything to say. I told them I had plenty, but I'd prefer to submit it in writing. That didn't go over well, but I wasn't about to play defense in a rigged game, not without making a few moves of my own. That afternoon, I went back to my desk and started digging. Every system change at Northridge had to be tracked in the change management portal. It was supposed to be protocol, though lately I'd noticed more and more undocumented adjustments slipping through, especially from upper management. I combed through recent commits, version histories, email threads, and meeting recordings, and there it was, clear as day. Marcus had requested the routing optimization changes directly from one of our junior devs, bypassing QA and skipping the required documentation. There was even a Teams chat log where he told the dev, "Don't worry about Jack seeing this, it's just a simple switch." That simple switch had triggered a cascading failure across the network when 2 critical systems, dispatch coordination and warehouse inventory, stopped syncing properly. It wasn't just carelessness, it was ego. I gathered it all, screenshots, logs, emails, not for revenge, for clarity, because when the truth finally came out, I didn't want there to be any confusion. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my home office with the lamp on low, staring at the Northridge network map, glowing on my second monitor. I'd spent a good chunk of my life building that system, not perfect, but solid, dependable, like a well-worn pair of boots that never let you down. And now, they were trying to pin their quicksand mess on me. The next day, I scheduled a one-on-one with Daniel Prescott, the CEO. I'd known Daniel for years. He wasn't a tech guy, but he had always shown me a quiet respect. I figured I had one shot to get this right. When I walked into his office, he looked up from his laptop and gestured for me to sit. I heard there was a routing issue. He said, calm but clipped. Serious disruption. Yes, I replied, and I think you deserve to know exactly how it happened. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I laid everything out piece by piece. I walked him through the timeline, showed him the screenshots, played him the audio clip from a project call where Marcus waved off concerns about QA. I explained what I'd built, why it had worked, and how one reckless change bypassed every safeguard I had in place. Daniel listened without interrupting. When I was finished, he asked one question. Why didn't you bring this to me sooner? Because I hoped someone else would see what was happening, I said. Because I didn't want to go over anyone's head. And maybe because I thought I was too old school to play politics. I just wanted to build things that worked. He leaned back, let out a long breath, and looked out the window. For a moment the room was silent except for the hum of the air vent. Then he nodded. Thank you, Jack. That was it. He didn't say what he was going to do, didn't promise anything, but I knew then that the truth had landed in the right place. Back at my desk, Marcus walked by with that same smirk he always wore when he thought he was winning. He paused just long enough to say, "Rough couple of days, huh?" I didn't respond, just looked at him. He didn't know yet, but he would. By the end of the week, the board had called an emergency session. I wasn't invited, but word travels fast. Marcus had been asked to present a timeline of the system failure and explain his role in it. He tried to dance around it, blamed the dev team, blamed legacy systems, blamed a lack of transparency in engineering, but too many pieces didn't add up. Tom Grady, the IT director, quietly passed along the documentation I'd provided. Prescott backed it up with a simple statement, "I've seen enough." Monday morning came with a shift in the air. Marcus's office door stayed shut all day. By lunch, the whispers had started. By 3 p.m., a calendar notification popped up company-wide. All staff meeting, 4 p.m. auditorium. I didn't attend. I already knew what was coming. Instead, I stayed at my desk, updating a diagnostic report, checking logs, and trying not to think too hard about what would come next. Because even if Marcus was out, the damage was still done. And I wasn't sure yet whether I wanted to stay. Not after being thrown under the bus like that. At 4:37, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Stop by my office when you have a minute." I stood up, stretched out the tension in my shoulders, and walked the long hallway down to the corner office where decisions were made. What I didn't know then was that the next chapter was about to begin, and it would come with choices I hadn't expected, offers I never thought I'd hear, and a test of what I really wanted out of the rest of my career. Daniel's office was quiet, like always. Not just the kind of quiet you get from soft carpet and thick glass, but the kind of quiet that makes you feel like whatever happens in that room, it matters. He didn't stand up when I came in, just gestured toward the chair across from him. "Close the door, Jack." I did, then sat. He folded his hands on the desk and looked at me, not cold, not warm, just steady. "Marcus has been placed on administrative leave," he said. "The board will decide next steps, but I don't expect he'll be coming back." I nodded once. No smile, no celebration, just facts. Daniel leaned back and exhaled through his nose like the weight of it all had finally landed. "I don't like what happened here, the way it was handled. You got dragged through something you didn't deserve, and I'll be honest, part of that's on me. I should have seen the signs sooner." It's done, I said simply. What matters now is fixing the mess. He gave a small nod. Exactly, which is why I'm offering you something. He reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a sealed folder, and slid it across to me. Interim Director of Systems Integrity. Temporary role. 6 months. Clean up the back end. Evaluate the damage. Rebuild what needs rebuilding. I didn't reach for the folder, not yet. Why me? I asked. After all this. Because I've finally accepted that we tried to replace experience with confidence. That was a mistake. He paused, then added, and because the rest of the team still looks to you, whether you want them to or not. I stared at the folder a second longer, then picked it up. It felt heavier than it should have. I didn't open it. Not yet. I'll think about it, I said. I hope you do, he replied. We need more people here who care about doing things the right way. I walked back to my office with the folder under my arm and the strange, buzzing weight of possibility hanging over me. 16 years of quiet, steady work. 1 week of chaos. Now this. I sat at my desk and opened the folder. The terms were generous. Temporary bump in pay. Full decision-making authority over the systems team. No Marcus, no red tape. Just one line stood out. Reports directly to CEO. That night, I didn't talk to anyone about it. I didn't need advice. What I needed was to sit with the feeling, the weight of knowing that if I accepted, I'd be stepping into the exact role Marcus had tried to fake his way through, but with the scars to prove why I could do it better. The next morning, I came in early, earlier than usual. No one was on my floor yet. I walked the length of the hallway, pausing outside Marcus's office, now dark, the nameplate already peeled off. Back in my chair, I pulled up system diagnostics and started reviewing the mess left behind. There were so many half-finished configuration changes, overlapping scheduling scripts, disabled redundancies, and ignored security flags. It was like someone had rewired a house by jamming every wire into one socket and hoping it wouldn't catch fire. And under all that, my original architecture still running, still holding on. I spent the next few hours lost in it, debugging, isolating errors, making a list of every subsystem that needed review. It wasn't personal anymore. It was just what needed to be done. At 11:03 a.m., a knock at my door broke my focus. I turned to see Caleb, one of our junior engineers, standing there awkwardly. He looked tired, embarrassed. "Can I talk to you for a second?" he asked. I nodded and he stepped in, closing the door behind him. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry," he said. "I should have told someone about what Marcus asked me to do. I thought he'd take the fall if anything went wrong." "You were in a tough spot," I said. "He put you there." He looked surprised, maybe even a little relieved. "I didn't mean to mess things up. I really didn't." "You didn't. You just followed bad orders. That happens. What matters is what you do next." He nodded slowly. "I want to fix it. I want to learn how to do this right." I stood and walked over to my whiteboard, where I'd started mapping out a plan. I handed him the marker. "Then help me start here," I said. From that moment on, something shifted. Word got around that I was working on the recovery. Not officially back, not in some high tower, but in the code, in the weeds, hands-on. By the end of the week, 4 more engineers had stopped by my office, quiet visits, each one of them saying more or less the same thing. "We're glad it's you." The following Monday, I walked into Daniel's office and handed him the signed contract. "I'll take the role," I said, "but I want 2 things." "Name them." "First, I want autonomy. I build the roadmap, I set the priorities. No shortcuts, no pushing unfinished work to production just to meet optics." He nodded. "Agreed." "Second," I said, pausing, I want a documentation and training team. Full time. No more one-person tribal knowledge. If I leave tomorrow, this place should keep running. Daniel leaned back, looking almost amused. That's exactly what Marcus said made you too expensive. I didn't flinch. Turns out that not documenting anything is what actually gets expensive. You'll have it, he said. Build it the way it should have been built from the start. I walked out of that office with the weight not lifted, but shifted. Now it had shape. Now it had purpose. What I didn't expect, what I couldn't know then, was that someone outside of Northridge had also been paying attention, and the next message I got, just 2 days later, would open a door I thought had closed for good. 2 days later, I was sitting in my office reviewing the new system architecture draft when an email hit my inbox. The subject line read, "We'd like to talk," from Weststone Logistics. I didn't recognize the sender's name, Miles Cartwright, but I knew the company. Weststone was one of our biggest clients until last year, when they left us for a competitor, frustrated with missed delivery windows and back-end outages. I opened the email. "Jack, I've heard from mutual contacts that you're leading the systems integrity overhaul at Northridge. We've been monitoring the transition since the news about Marcus Reed broke. A few of our folks remember your name from early integrations. We always appreciated how stable your systems were. We're expanding again and looking for someone to help us build a new logistics platform from the ground up. I'd like to meet if you're open to a conversation. Miles Cartwright, CTO, Weststone Logistics." I sat there a minute staring at the screen. It wasn't the first offer I'd gotten in my career, but it was the first one that felt earned. I didn't answer right away. I needed time to think. That weekend, I drove upstate to my brother's cabin. No cell signal, no email, just trees, a lake, and quiet. I walked the trail behind the cabin, boots crunching over fallen leaves, and thought about what had happened in the last few months. What had been taken from me, what I'd taken back. The thing was, I didn't feel bitter anymore. Not toward Marcus, not even toward the company. What I felt was older than anger. It was resolve, the kind that comes from being knocked down but not broken, from watching people you trained walk away and still deciding to train the next group anyway, because if you don't, who will? When I got back Sunday night, I sent Miles a reply. Told him I was open to talking, but not to build something flashy or fast. If he wanted another off-the-shelf miracle, I wasn't the guy. But if he wanted something solid, something that would last 10 years or more, something people could depend on and understand, I was in. He responded within the hour. "That's exactly what we want." But that was the thing. I didn't want to leave Northridge in ruins. I wasn't built like that. I'd started something here, and I meant to finish it. The next morning, I met with Daniel and laid it out clearly. I'd help complete the recovery roadmap. I'd document every layer. I'd train a replacement team to own it long after I was gone. But after that, I'd be moving on. He didn't try to talk me out of it. He just stood up, shook my hand, and said, "Then let's do this right." Over the next 4 months, we rebuilt the system from the inside out. We documented everything: network flow, code logic, failover protocols. We built real dashboards with real-time alerts. We brought in young developers and trained them not just how to write code, but how to think through it, how to ask why, not just how. And we wrote it all down, so no one would ever be indispensable again, not like I was. Not like Marcus wanted me to be. The day I left Northridge for good, there was no big speech, no balloons, just a small card on my desk, signed by the team. One message stood out in bold, blocky handwriting. "You didn't just fix the system, you taught us how to protect it." Caleb. That afternoon, I walked out of the building with nothing more than a backpack and a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. No bitterness, no revenge, just clarity. At Weststone, I started fresh. No legacy mess, no politics, just clean architecture and the freedom to build it right from the start. The team they'd assembled was sharp, but green. I saw myself in some of them, hungry to learn, eager to make something that mattered. And this time, I didn't hoard the knowledge. I didn't lock away solutions in my head. We made training part of the culture. Every fix, every new module, every lesson learned, documented, taught, shared. 6 months in, Weststone's new platform was handling 4 times the traffic their old system ever could. On launch day, Miles pulled me aside and said, "This is the first time in 3 years we've felt like we're ahead of the curve." I didn't say much, just smiled and nodded. It wasn't about glory, it was about the work. Years ago, someone once told me the problem with people like me is we make ourselves too valuable, that we get buried in our own knowledge and become impossible to replace. But they missed the point. The real value isn't in being irreplaceable. It's in making sure what you build outlasts you. And this time, I had. Have you ever had a boss who blamed you for something that wasn't your fault? What did you do? You could also add a follow-up to boost comments. Share your experience in the comments. I'd love to hear your story.